this was a decorating contest, I most certainly would not win. Kind of like the way that it kind of looks a lot like slime, so I'm gonna let it be like slime. Happy Halloween, everyone. Today I'm using a Haunted Manor cake pan. I'm going to make a dark chocolate cake and do a little bit of decorating with some royal icing just to make it pop. The cake will taste delicious, which is the most important thing, and it'll look really neat too. Without further ado, let's get started. Alright, so first thing I'm going to do, I am going to turn my induction cooktop on. I want it simmering, so you don't want your water boiling, you just want it at a nice simmer. Alright, so I have my bowl, and to this I'm going to add 4 ounces of a really quality, really good, unsweetened chocolate. This is called making a pudding. This is what's going to give the cake its moistness. Now I'm just going to break it up into little pieces. You don't really have to go nuts with it. Set it in the bottom of this bowl. I also have a 1/4 cup of organic cocoa powder, as well as 2 teaspoons of espresso powder. This is going to give it a really, really rich chocolate flavor. I'm going to pour in my hot water into my cocoa, chocolate, and espresso powder, and I'm gonna let it mix and melt until it's smooth. And once it's all melted, I'm gonna add in 1/2 cup of sugar to make it nice and glossy. So now I'm gonna go ahead and add in my sugar. Dadgummit. Once that sugar is dissolved in here and it's shiny like that, I'm going to carefully remove this hot bowl, and I'm gonna set it aside to cool. So while our chocolate is cooling, we are going to go ahead and prep our pan. That'll be the first thing that we do. And I like to use just flour-based baking spray. With this particular kind of coated pan, you do not want to use just regular oil-based cooking spray. You want to use a flour-based or butter, but I've never found butter to work for me. I just use this. This is what works for me. So just spray the inside really good. We have a lot of detail. We have a lot of detail in this pan, so we want to then use a brush and get into all those cracks and crevices, so that way our batter shows up every single detail. I've also preheated my oven to 350 degrees. The pan is properly coated. I'm going to set that to the side. And we will get started on the cake batter. So in a bowl, bowl of a stand mixer fitted with a whisk attachment, we will add 4 whole eggs and 2 egg yolks. We'll turn that on, and what we're gonna do is we're just gonna whisk it for about 30 seconds to let it all come together. After that, we will add 1.25 cups of granulated sugar. Set it on stir, bring it together, and once all those egg yolks are broken, add your sugar and whisk it. Medium high, and whisk until it is frothy and lightened in color. Okay, so now you can see that it is light and fluffy. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to remove the whisk attachment. I'm going to replace it with the paddle, and I'm going to add in our cooled chocolate. Add that in with all that chocolatey goodness. And we're going to stir that together until it's all combined, after which I'm going to add 1.5 sticks of room temperature unsalted butter, 1 tablespoon at a time. So this is very, very, very soft butter. That looks nice and combined. I don't really see any streaks of white left from the egg. So I'm going to start adding in our butter. I'm going to turn it up to about 2 to give this butter a chance to get incorporated. I'm waiting about 10 seconds before I add the next piece. Alright, I'm down to 1 more piece of butter. That incorporate for about 10 seconds, and then I'm going to turn the mixer off. You can kind of see what we're looking with. That's very thick right now. Or kind of thin, actually. My bad. I don't even know what I'm saying. Right here I have 1.75 cups of all-purpose flour, to which I will add in 1.5 teaspoons of baking soda and 1 teaspoon of salt. I also have a cup room temperature buttermilk, to which I'm going to add 2 teaspoons of vanilla. Turn this back on to low to stir, and I'm going to add 1/3 of my flour. Once that's all incorporated, I will add in 1/2 of my buttermilk. You get a little bit better at this every time. Next 1/3 of the flour. Finally, the rest of the buttermilk. Do it slowly or you'll end up with buttermilk all over you, like myself. And finally, the last of your flour. Yes, it makes a mess. All right, now what I'm gonna do real quick is I'm going to lift it up. I'm gonna take the spatula that I was using for the chocolate and I'm just gonna kind of knock down any flour that I see. And I'm gonna scrape down the bowl really good. Give it a good scrape down because like I said before, we always get stuff that kind of likes to hang out, hide out at the bottom. And it just needs to join the party, so. Turn it on one last time. Give it a good beating, about 10 seconds. Good deal. All right, everything is all incorporated. Don't want to let any of it go to waste. It's a really light, fluffy batter, and it's so crazy that this cake ends up as rich and as decadent as it does because the batter actually looks pretty light and fluffy. So I'm going to kind of do a little bit of cleanup real quick. All right, so what I have here is I have a sheet tray. And the reason that I have a sheet tray that I like to set my cookie pan on, or my cake pan on, is because this bottom, like the bottom of it, isn't really perfectly straight. And in my oven, the rack has spaces in it so that a lot of times it could sit a little wonky. So I like to put mine on a sheet tray so it has a nice solid base to sit on. So now we're gonna take our cake batter, pour it. I'm gonna quickly turn the whole thing this way and try to fill it up on the other side. This is the perfect example of why you want to have room temperature ingredients, especially with things like butter, because otherwise it won't blend properly. You'll have you'll find like you got like little chunks of butter, little streaks of butter through your dough. Now what I'm doing is I'm just going to smooth it out, try to make sure that everything kind of touches. It will grow, so it's okay. You don't want to fill it all the way up because then it'll overflow. So that's no fun for anybody. Now the last thing that I'm gonna do, of course, get chocolate all over me, which is normal. Last thing I'm gonna do is, because there's bubbles down here in the bottom of the pan, which could prevent it from giving us our good, sharp, clean design, I'm gonna give it 3 rather loud, rather difficult, or rather hard tap to knock those air bubbles out. So. And you can kind of see there was a few bubbles that kind of popped. So. I think I'm gonna give it one more good tap. All right, so this goes into a 350-degree oven for about an hour. And after that, we'll be ready for our grand reveal. 350 degrees for about an hour. Perfect. So our cake today baked for about 50 minutes. And I knew it was done because when I inserted a cake tester, it came out clean. Also, another way that you can tell when a cake is done is it starts to pull away. It starts to pull away from the edges of the pan, and that's how you know that it's done. So now what I'm carefully going to do is I'm going to lift this cake for the reveal. And the best way that I have found to do that is to take my wire rack, and this cake pan is still very hot. I'm gonna take the whole thing and I'm going to move it to the side because that's where I can grip better. And I'm just going to quickly flip it. As so. Let's find the front of our house, which is right here. Now, sometimes I need a little help, like getting a little bit of leverage to lift the cake out of the pan. I'm gonna do this quickly because, like I said, this cake pan is very hot. So we'll see if I can't do it. It's maybe a bit too much to grip, but I will try. Or not. Just watch me struggle with this. Be right back. Beautifully soft. You can look at how soft this cake is. It is rich, it is decadent, but it is oh so soft. Now we need to let it cool completely. This will take a few hours, possibly about 3 hours or so. And after it's cooled, the outside will kind of firm up a little bit and we will be ready to start our decorating and really making this the centerpiece of our Halloween table. So very darn happy. Heck yes. Beautiful. Out. We are on the very last step of decorating our haunted manor. So I'm going to move this guy out of the way while I show you a few more things that we have. I have some Halloween themed sprinkles. Always be fun. Little eyeballs, lots of little pretty sugar pearls and all that kind of stuff. And the final thing that I have, chocolate and vanilla sandwich cookies. Those are Oreos, Ted, which I'm just gonna peel apart, and I'm just gonna scrape off frosting, set that in a bowl. I'm gonna make this into soil that we'll sprinkle around the outside of the house. Move this over to the side. It's Oreo dust off my hands. And obviously there's plenty of ways to do this. I like to squeeze all the air out of the bag, seal it the rest of the way so you don't end up with cookie crumbs all over the place. I like to get them started with my hands, just crushing them. You can get absolutely violent with these. Beat them to death with a rolling pin, which is my next step. There's some ASMR for you. Or you can put these in a food processor. This will be our dirt of our haunted manor. I'm gonna set this to the side for now. All right, so busting out the mixer again, and here's why. One of the best things I have ever seen, royal icing mix. Now, I don't make a whole lot of royal icing, but when I do, this is what I like to use. It's got everything that you need to make a really good royal icing, really like perfectly textured. It dries perfectly. All right, so what you need is 1 pack of this royal icing mix. I can do it without spilling it. Dump that into the bowl of your stand mixer. You can do this with a hand mixer as well, but I like using a stand mixer for this. Followed by 1/3 cup of room temperature water. So we'll stick it on stir, and I'm gonna stand back as I gently pour it in. It honestly looks like there's not enough liquid to powder to make it work, but it does. So you want to beat it together until it's nice and smooth, which really doesn't take all that long. I'm going to do 2 colors today. I'm going to do kind of like a creepy purple and like kind of a acid green. This looks like the perfect consistency. Right, so what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to take half of this frosting and I'm going to put it into a separate bowl that I will use to make 1 color, and I will leave the rest of it in our mixing bowl. I am being incredibly precise. So to the bowl that's on our stand mixer, I'm going to add a few drops of purple gel. This is a tube of purple gel coloring. So I don't want to be overly heavy-handed with this. I'm just gonna add a little dot of it. Put the mixer paddle back on and turn it back on until it turns purple. Keep in mind that when you use gels for coloring frosting, that the color does darken and develop over time. So I'd always aim for like a shade or 2 lighter than what you are wanting, because it will darken. This is kind of a lavender color right now, that's what I want, because it'll darken up to that kind of witchy purple. I realize it's probably hilarious to watch me be so awkward about everything, but this is a right-handed world and I am not right-handed. So that's our purple. All right, so I have a piping bag lined with a very small tip. It's a little tiny tip. So I'm gonna put my piping bag and tip down into a cup like this, just a regular old kitchen glass, and it holds it for me so I can use both hands to get all this frosting in there. Bowl is incredibly heavy, really clumsy. So, though I'm sure the question will be asked by somebody, can you use like naturally colored, like natural food coloring based colors? I'm sure you can. I personally haven't used them, but that doesn't mean a thing. I'm going to, I forgot bread ties. Y'all, it has been a day, but we are here and we are decorating a chocolate cake. I don't know about you, but for me, most those days can be salvaged with a piece of chocolate cake. And now I will work on making the green. So we have the remainder of our frosting over here. So this is leaf green, and I really want to be light-handed with it. There we go. That's a tiny little drop. I'm not going to use the mixer for this. I'm just going to use my hand to show you that there are many ways of doing this. So if you don't have a mixer, don't be discouraged. That's almost a bit too light. As you can see, it's almost like a minty green, and I want it a bit more. I'm going to add just a little bit more. The thing about this is that A, it'll darken over time, and B, you can always add more, but you can't take it back as easily. That's why if you see my spiderweb cookie video, I just sprung and bought black colored icing because I tried to make that from scratch from a white icing before. It took me like an hour to do it by hand. I'm going to get this green frosting. Oh yeah, that green frosting is already kind of intensifying in color. Just sitting here, just for these past couple of minutes while I've been struggling with this piping bag. I'm not going to complain. Those are all things to be thankful. All right, I'm going to do a little bit of cleanup and then get ready to frost this cake. Here's our cake. From what I can gather, that's the front. So what I'm thinking that I want to do is I want to start with some purple, and I'm just going to kind of, I'm just going to kind of be minimalist with it. So we have this pretty little ridge line, and I'm just going to do a simple little dot. And all we're doing is just a little bit of embellishing. The pretty thing about this particular pan is that a lot of this hard work's already been done for you. All you got to do is really kind of just enhance it. Keep an eye out in the future. I have a gingerbread house, one of these too. That's one of my favorite Christmas cakes to do. So all I'm doing is just some little dots, and I'm just going to kind of follow the roof line. You don't really have to do a whole lot to it. As a matter of fact, you could do absolutely nothing to it, and it'd still be a very cute and effective centerpiece. This was a decorating contest. I most certainly would not win, but it is fun. I will say that. It is very fun to do this, and it's a good thing to get the kids involved in. Here's my front. Oh, it's cute. I think we need our chimney. There's so much detail on this cake pan. I mean, like, I feel like the more I look at it, the more I see. I mean, there's windows on the sides, down the bottom. It's all over the place. Okay, yes, and then I think the final thing that I will do with purple is the chimney. Just let our chimney be oozing noxious fumes. Now on to the green. I think we will just do kind of like clean every single one of these. Just kind of make it pop. A lot of times whenever I go to make something like this, I don't really know what I want to do yet until I just get going. Oh, we were just talking about this ooze on the fireplace. Let's make that happen. Just fill it up and just kind of let it dribble. So I'm just looking at it and I'm just adding in some color wherever I think it should go. Let your mind wander. Kind of like the way that it kind of looks a lot like slime. So I'm gonna let it be like slime. I feel like the house is just dripping. I think it's kind of covered in vines or ooze. I mean, I'm just kind of just letting it do whatever happens is what happens. Like I said, this is ended up looking a little bit more cutesy than scary. That's okay. I don't like something haunted inside. It looks like we have a few windows up on the front of the house, so I'm going to fill those in. So I'm going to take our soil that we made earlier, and I'm going to just sprinkle it around the edge on all sides, because this really is a 3D cake. You can admire it from all angles. A little bit on it just to kind of give it a bit more of a rustic, sort of grimy look, which is a weird way to describe cake. But so now we have our sprinkles, which I think are really cute. They're kind of flying all over this kitchen now. I'm going to be sweeping these up for several years. Another fun thing to do would be to pour all these sprinkles to actually kind of make it like a surprise cake, which I'm so dumb. I don't know why I didn't think about doing that. Here we go. They're going to go all the way down in the middle. Just fill it up so when you cut it, you'll get kind of a flood of Halloween sprinkles. We have a few of our M&Ms, and now that I'm thinking about it, I don't really know that they're going to fit. I don't really know that I want to use them, and that's kind of the beautiful thing, is you can decide whether or not you want to use something. So I was going to use the M&Ms. Personally, I don't want to today. I don't think they match, and so I'm just not going to. Now the final thing that I have, I forgot that I had these until literally right this second, is I have some cake toppers. Ooh, I got some bats. Yes. I think we can do a spooky tree maybe back here. I think Happy Halloween should go right here in the middle. We have several bats. How about a witch? Final piece is our ghost. And there you have it. Happy Halloween. Enjoy this haunted cake.